Hello everyone, welcome back to another show. Tonight we're going to be talking about the massive attack that Hezbollah carried out on central Israel. In particular, they targeted the Mossad headquarters next to Tel Aviv. The recent attacks that they carried out on Israel, including confirmed hits on the commando unit of Israel, Shayetet 13, alongside the David base and very strategic warehouses for Israel. The second thing that I want to talk to you about is the IDF asking for 2 more reservist brigades to join the ground forces' potential invasion of Lebanon. And Herzi Halevi saying that we prepare for a ground maneuver and entering enemy land. Gantz saying if Hezbollah does not stop the strikes, IDF will carry out a ground operation in Lebanon. We also will be talking about Al-Qassam brigades in Rafah, and Israel confirming that Hamas is now controlling all of Gaza. Is this a way for Benjamin Netanyahu to completely seal the deal after a slight escalation from Lebanon? Or are we going to witness a bigger war, an escalation after escalation, the thing that we've been seeing since the beginning of this war? Escalation after escalation. The only time we saw a ceasefire was when we had the temporary ceasefire that was very short-lived. Israel then decided to restart the war, and they haven't stopped since because they don't want to not have an opportunity to continue the war at any given moment. We're going to start off with the attack of Hezbollah. So firstly, Hezbollah carried out this attack with a new missile. This new missile is called Qadir 1. Qadir 1 is a ballistic missile. It's no normal missile. It's the heaviest missile that Hezbollah used so far. You're talking about 620 millimeter width, 7,665 millimeter length, total weight 2,870 kilos, half a ton explosive warhead, and a range of 190 kilometers. Qadir 1, some claim that this is a modified version of their previous missile Zilzal, but Hezbollah have been revealing new missiles in this war. And they're no longer using Katyushas now. All of their missiles that they're using, even in the northern parts of Israel, are Fadi 1 and Fadi 2, the heavier missiles that they announced that they are using after the Israeli escalation when it comes to Lebanon. Why are Hezbollah so reserved, so conservative with their attack on Israel? What's happening exactly? Are they trying to not give Israel any excuses to wage an all-out war with them? Or are there any other calculations? Well, we need to establish a couple of things here. First and foremost, it's Israel that has been escalating with Lebanon. Hezbollah and their entry into Al-Aqsa flood was to show solidarity and support with the Palestinian people. They said the supporting front will stop when the war on Gaza stops. Israel since then constantly pushed the boundaries with Hezbollah and increased their attacks on Lebanon, something that forced Hezbollah to escalate from their end too, but not to levels where they can be seen as giving the Israelis an excuse to wage an all-out war against Lebanon. Why? Because Hezbollah is a Lebanese national movement that is a political movement. They have charitable organizations. They're part of Lebanese society, and they are very keen on the safety and protection of the Lebanese people. So, from their perspective, they will definitely support Gaza and take that risk, and they will sacrifice, and they've been paying the price heavily, but not to a level where it firstly affects their general operations or stop them at any point. So Israel targeted them heavily with the pager attacks. They assassinated senior figures in Hezbollah. Nothing deterred them. They had a massive attack in Lebanon, didn't deter them. They constantly escalate and push further. Nothing is deterring them. And with regards to the ground invasion, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, is saying, that's my wish, that Israel invades Lebanon. Because Israel's weakness will be in a ground invasion. But again, the Israelis are not calculating things properly. They are still threatening. Now, regardless of Hezbollah's attempts not to escalate things with Israel, the Israelis are not waiting for an excuse. If they want an excuse, they'll create it. Like the false flag attack that they did in Majd al-Shams, where they killed the children from the Druze community and blamed it on Hezbollah. Then they started carrying out these assassinations. They assassinated Fuad Shukur, they assassinated Ismail Haniyeh. So they don't necessarily need Hezbollah's response. But again, Hezbollah responds and escalates to a level where it doesn't attract more Israeli aggression. However, that method from Hezbollah will not necessarily succeed in preventing an escalation. The only thing that it will do is show everyone that it was not Hezbollah who attracted the all-out war. It was Israel. Why? Because look, even though they targeted our leaders, we didn't go on an all-out war. We targeted Unit 8200. They did the pager attack. We attacked the Mossad HQ. They targeted people in Lebanon. We still haven't targeted deliberately many of their population. We target bases, we target warehouses, we target their factories, the key hubs of the military and the military industrial complex in Israel. That, again, it might not necessarily work when it comes to preventing the escalation, but it will give Hezbollah the image of those who are very keen on the safety of Lebanon. And they are keen, and they have proven they are keen. Because for a year now, they haven't brought an all-out war, completely, a big, large war on Lebanon so far. But now we have an open war. But that open war came from Israel, didn't come from Hezbollah. So there are certain things that will start to change the levels of attacks, but Hezbollah will take that depending on what they see fit and depending on the level of Israeli escalation. Then you have Israel. Israel reports in many mainstream outlets in Israel, media, IDF prepares 2 reservist brigades to join the divisions already deployed in the Lebanese borders and the massive numbers of tanks going to Lebanon. Then we had Herzi Halevi saying that we prepare for a ground maneuver. We prepare for a ground maneuver entering enemy land, meaning they're only looking towards escalation. Gantz is also threatening, the man who supposedly opposes Benjamin Netanyahu. If Hezbollah doesn't stop strikes, IDF will carry out a ground operation in Lebanon. Okay, escalation after escalation after escalation. Even those who oppose Netanyahu, not knowing that they are serving him. A big question here, why is Netanyahu doing all of this now? Netanyahu runs away forward. He likes to run away. So now he's running away forward by escalating with Lebanon and not solving anything in Gaza. Why do I say that? Well, firstly, Al-Qassam brigades today, they released videos of them targeting tanks, D9 bulldozers, the Netzarim line, the command bases in Gaza, everything. So Israel lies constantly to their own population about dismantling all of the Hamas brigades in Gaza. Netanyahu used that as an excuse to go to Lebanon. He said, we dismantled the final brigade of Hamas in Gaza, now we're going to Lebanon. Okay, they're still fighting you, annihilating you in Gaza, humiliating your army, and you're confirming that. Today we had another report in Ynet, which is the website of the main Israeli newspaper, Yediot Ahronot, saying that Gaza is controlled by Hamas. Hamas controls all Gaza. This is what they said in their article today. Even before the transfer of forces to the north, this is how Hamas regains control of Gaza. The IDF's last ground operation in Gaza, not around the Philadelphia corridor or the Netzarim line, was about a month ago. On the outskirts of Deir al-Balah in the center of the Gaza Strip, the 7th Brigade under Division 98 destroyed several tunnels near the border with Israel for about a week. and a place where the IDF did not maneuver at all, and as an extension to the raid to locate the bodies of 6 abductees in western Khan Yunis. Since then, the IDF does not operate on the ground. This is what they're saying. And Hamas makes good use of this to retighten its control over the Gaza Strip. It's coming in the biggest Israeli newspaper. Hamas controls about 2 million Gazas without any kind of opposition rising up in Gaza to challenge, and without any uprising against it by the Gazan public. Security officials told Ynet this information, according to that report on their website. This is happening in most cities, towns, and villages in the Gaza Strip, except for Rafah, according to them, where the maneuver has ended these days, and according to army estimates, only about 10,000 civilians remain in the city. And they added in that article that Hamas did a great job that even put some of the Israeli healthcare bodies to shame with their vaccines under such tight situations in Gaza, that they are providing essential services, that they are controlling what's happening when it comes to aid, that the banks are still operational, and again, ending the battle of Rafah. All of that under what? Under the spotlight of Lebanon. So what are they doing? Firstly, confirming that they ended the battle of Rafah now, this moment. Then that Hamas is controlling all of Gaza. They are over the ground, technically. They have the authority. They have the authority in the north and the south. They're providing essential services. And they're still fighting Israel. Well, this is not mentioned in this article, but we saw, of course, proof of what they're doing. Okay. What is Israel trying to do here? Well, a couple of days ago, we mentioned that Netanyahu could be using what he's doing in Lebanon as the final blow before a potential deal. Not to say that that will happen, because things can escalate even further than this. But we have all of this happening in Gaza. So you're going against all of your declared strategy in Gaza, supposedly to add this new condition of the war, and go to Lebanon knowing that you are running a helpless campaign, a hopeless campaign in Lebanon, by the way. Nothing will be stopping Hezbollah. Hezbollah will not be stopped. They're still active day by day. They are still attacking Israel, and nothing is happening. So, is Netanyahu doing that to potentially do all of these things in Gaza, withdraw, allow Hamas to do everything, confirm it, pop it up, a test balloon to the public? With all of this happening in Lebanon, everyone shifting their focus to Lebanon from Gaza? Perhaps, maybe. However, all of the indications that we've seen after the temporary ceasefire ended do not show that Israel is looking for a ceasefire. They show that Israel is looking for an escalation. However, Hezbollah, and the primary opportunity for them here to make something go out of control is Hezbollah. They've already tried to trigger Hezbollah many times. But to this moment, Hezbollah are not being triggered. What we've had in terms of Hezbollah responses on Israel were intense, but intense and very calculated. They are still not launching thousands of missiles all at once on Israel, where they can. I mean, Hamas on their own, they launched 5,000 missiles and shells on Israel on the 7th of October in the course of 20 minutes. Hezbollah have the capacity to do that. But they are attacking, but their attacks are calculated to send a message internally and externally that, number one, we are increasing our attacks. So we're introducing new missiles, a ballistic missile for the first time. We're targeting half of Israel now, and we are causing lots of harm to them after several warnings that we've sent before. But we don't want an all-out war. Why? Because we're winning and Israel is losing in the long run by points. Benjamin Netanyahu was in a really bad situation before he started this campaign in Lebanon. People were protesting in record numbers. All eyes were on him. He had tensions internally and externally. And there were talks about the formation of a new government, and parts of his ultra-Orthodox members of the government having a new government with members of the opposition. Then, all of a sudden, Lebanon became so important, and they had to add this condition of returning people to the north when they haven't achieved one objective in Gaza. Running forward. He's running away forward. He's running away from Gaza. And now with this report, well, they confirm everything. They confirm that Hamas is still powerful. Hamas is over the ground. Hamas is controlling Gaza. Hamas has no opposition, and Hamas has no one to challenge them. Well, what do we understand? What do we understand by that? That they failed miserably, because the first condition of this war, the first objective was to eliminate the Hamas. Not only did they not eliminate Hamas, they've globalized the love of people for Hamas, both in Palestine and outside of it, because of them standing up against Israel. Now, is he gonna use this Lebanon escalation temporarily before potentially reaching a deal? That's the question here. He could be doing that. He could be doing that, because there were talks about Benjamin Netanyahu not wanting to have a deal up until we have a new president in the United States, and he's betting on Donald Trump. Although Donald Trump is doing worse in the polls, especially following his televised debate with Kamala Harris, but Benjamin Netanyahu apparently made a promise to him that he will not be having any sort of ceasefire agreement before we have a new president. Why? Well, because they were best buddies at the time of the presidency of Donald Trump, and he prefers Donald Trump to the Democrats. Joe Biden and the US administration, although they supplied Israel with everything that they need, they still might have some niggly points here and there. The supporters, or some of the supporters of the Democrats, more so than the Republicans, have more support for the Palestinian cause than Republicans, again by polls. Now, the popularity of Israel has decreased significantly overall, but to Israel, it's vital that they have a president in the United States that is as close to Israel as possible. Someone who won't argue with anything. Donald Trump, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He recognized the legitimacy of the occupied Golan Heights. He had this plan to completely get rid of the Palestinian cause. A coordination of more deals with Arab states without anything to do with the Palestinian cause. He did many things that were in Benjamin Netanyahu's favor, and Benjamin Netanyahu is hoping to have him again. However, that might not happen. If that won't happen, does that mean that Benjamin Netanyahu increases his escalation? And what will we see from the resistance fronts if Israel keeps on escalating? And what will Iran do, and what will Russia do, and what will China do in case the United States starts to support Israel? Firstly, Hezbollah don't need Iran. Hezbollah have more than enough power to defend Lebanon and resist Israel. That's number one. if Hamas in Gaza have the capacity to resist Israel, backed by all of this US power and support, and survive almost 100,000 tons of TNT, and starvation, and genocide, and destruction, Hezbollah can resist Israel, and they can defend Lebanon without the intervention of Iran. As a matter of fact, Hezbollah might hope that Iran won't intervene in case of an all-out, open and escalating war, a destructive, massive, great war with Lebanon. Then, what if it escalates to a level where the United States starts to get involved? We have more attacks on Israel from Lebanon, from Syria, from Iraq, and from Yemen. And the US starts to actually assist them, not just in defending, but in attacking as well. Then we could be talking about Iran potentially going in. They might do something without that. They surprised us in April when they attacked Israel directly. So we can still see an attack from Iran. They said they will respond to the assassination of Haniyeh. We haven't had that response yet. They could be doing it. They might have given the US time, and they will see to them when is the suitable time to conduct such an attack. Now, they see that Netanyahu is the main person who will benefit from going on an all-out war because he's running away, again, forward from Gaza, because he's failing in Gaza. And they don't want to give him what he wants. He wants to drag the US, he wants to drag the region to an all-out war. They, well, at least so far, don't want to give him that. And the attacks that Israel carried out so far, from Hezbollah's perspective, they can be contained so long as they have an adequate response that does not include bombarding and mass killing Israeli civilians. That's from Iran and from Hezbollah's perspective. How long will this strategy work? We don't know. Why? Because Israel is constantly escalating, and they are constantly increasing the death toll of civilians. Are they seeing something in the coming months or the coming years? Are they planning for something else? Again, we don't know that. They could be. Iran is preparing the tone for something to happen. Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei had a speech during which he said that what's happening is similar to the holy defense in the 80s when the Iranians sacrificed. What's happening now? Meaning, well, millions of Iranians died in the 80s with the war with Iraq. Is he preparing the Iranian people to sacrifice again? Could be. Lavrov, he's saying that Israel is behaving in a Hitlerian way. He's saying that the way Israel is only focusing on the deaths of the Jewish people in the Holocaust, disregarding the fact that many other people apart from Jews were killed in World War II, is similar to Hitlerian exceptionalism. And they are using that to conduct what they're doing. Russia's increasing the tone. He said that Russians died, Ukrainians died, Belarusians died, and many other people died in World War II. Not just the Jewish people that Israel constantly uses and capitalizes or tries to capitalize on this past suffering and victimhood to commit massacres and new holocausts against other people. Then the tone that's coming from China is also increasing. They're calling what Israel is doing terrorism in Lebanon. Well, at least the editor-in-chief of the South China Morning Post. But again, you're talking about the tone coming from these countries as well, if not from official figures. And Israel has shown discontent from these two countries for a while. Now, in case things get worse and escalate, of course, we'll start having coalitions. But then again, the same thing that's happening with Hezbollah and the resistance movements in Iran will happen in the case of an attack on Iran when it comes to Russia and China. So we wouldn't necessarily see a full all-out intervention unless things get more serious and risky. Remember, in the beginning of the war, Hezbollah said that we will not allow Hamas to collapse in Gaza. So the red line to them was the collapse of Hamas in Gaza. Iran knows to a very large extent that Hezbollah cannot be beaten in Lebanon. Israel might try and challenge them. They might try and escalate, but that's unlikely to work whatsoever, because they couldn't defeat Hezbollah in 33 days of battles in 2006. And Israel, by the way, are wasting a lot of ammo for no reason. Hezbollah are using certain tactics now where they have dummy missile launchers so that Israel can hit them and claim later on that we targeted missile launchers without them being missile launchers. Because don't forget now, because Yoav Gallant now said we took down 50% of their firepower. 50% of their firepower. And they're still attacking you and using new missiles and ballistic missiles. And they had to resort to this these bedroom missile lies. What are we going to see in the next few days? Well, Benjamin Netanyahu had a call with Herzi Halevi today without the presence of Yoav Gallant. Why? Yoav Gallant might show a slightly different position. But he spoke with Herzi Halevi, then we had a statement from Herzi Halevi. We're seeing a closer relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and Herzi Halevi to potentially have more escalation in Lebanon. Israel might give it a few more days. The next 10 days are going to be crucial. So since the intensity began, you're talking about almost a week now, less than a week. Usually the first 2 to 3 weeks are very crucial. Again, there were reports that the United States and some European countries who back Israel heavily gave them 2 weeks to try and get this sorted and get Hezbollah to agree to remove and distance themselves from Gaza. Why? So that Benjamin Netanyahu can normalize an ongoing war in Gaza, by the way. Normalize an ongoing war in Gaza, or reach a deal with Gaza, with the spotlight being on Lebanon, or after saying, well, look now, I also attacked Hezbollah and harmed them very heavily. And one important thing to realize here, by the way, before we wrap up, is the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu views himself as the king of kings of Israel. He views himself not as the prime minister. He views himself as higher than Ben Gurion. He wants to be viewed as the man who creates the greater Israel and establishes its might. And much of his policies are driven by his narcissism and the way he views himself and his psychopathy. Nevertheless, all of this is also being conducted because of what Israel is and how Israel was ever since its inception. A state that bases itself on occupation and expansionism through violence. They're still doing that. To hope to see that change is delusional. To think that Israel will start de-escalating and seeking peaceful resolutions is delusional. We are most likely going to see more escalation up until either Benjamin Netanyahu is taken down or gets forced by someone to stop the war. Otherwise, all the actions that he's been doing so far are escalation after escalation. And these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about in this video. As usual, I hope I shed some light and added some beneficial information for you. Apart from that, stay blessed, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace.